Hello, friends, and thank you so much for joining me today as we explore the evolution of the North American flute and how we get to the modern native flute that we have today. My name is Johnny Lipford, and for the better part of my life, I've dedicated to playing, recording, teaching, and sharing the love of the Native American flute. I hold in my hand a 5-hole flute made from bamboo. This is a replica, actually, of my very first flute that I received at the age of 13. I started my flute journey on Christmas Day in 2002. I received this flute as a Christmas present. And I say replica because I knew nothing about flute maintenance and flute care, and my real first flute, unfortunately, is no longer with me. And so I really I focus on flute care and maintenance as people add flutes to their collection. Today we're going to be looking at several different flutes. I'll tell you about them, and they really are these chess pieces on the board that get us to what is now the modern native flute. And so we can see over time how it's evolved from something different into something that we have today that is perhaps a little more musical, perhaps a little more forgiving, perhaps a little more accessible. And so I appreciate you being here today, and I look forward to sharing this information with you. The Breckenridge Flute holds a vital place in the history and evolution of the Native American flute. Discovered in present-day Breckenridge County, Kentucky, this artifact dates back to 1020 to 1160 Common Era, making it one of the earliest and most iconic representations of the modern design of the Native American flute. The flute was meticulously crafted from a single piece of rivercane, featuring open finger holes and a distinctive mouthpiece representing the earliest known form of the Native American flute. The Breckenridge Flute, currently housed at the University of Arkansas, is not just an ancient musical instrument, but a testament to the ingenuity and artistry of the Native American communities of the time. It features 4 finger holes, a design that would be expanded on in later versions of the Native American flute. Listening to the sounds of the Breckenridge Flute is like traveling back in time. The haunting melodies echo the stories, traditions, and emotions of the people who first created and played this instrument. The Breckenridge Flute serves as a timeless link to our past, connecting us to the hands that first played it, the stories they shared, and the emotions they expressed. It stands as a powerful symbol of our collective human heritage and the universal language of music. Beltrami Flute, a significant artifact in the realm of Native American flutes, was collected by Italian explorer Giacomo Costantino Beltrami during his journey through present-day Minnesota in 1823. This flute marks a pivotal point in the evolution of Native American flute design and craftsmanship, symbolizing the shift from rivercane to wood as the primary material. With its intricate carving of a gar head, the Beltrami flute stands out for its artistic prowess. This flute is currently housed in the Natural Sciences Civic Museum in Bergamo, northern Italy. The Beltrami flute is crafted from a single piece of cedar and boasts a circular slow air chamber exit hole and sound hole with a shallow flue cut into the top of the body. The effigy at the end of the flute, resembling a fish head, likely a gar, further highlights the meticulous detailing involved in its creation. Its 8 holes, with the lowest coinciding with the junction between the body and the effigy, contribute to the unique sound profile of this instrument. The Beltrami flute's design and construction reflect the cultural heritage and musical traditions of the Native American communities of that period. The transition from rivercane to wood materials signifies the advancement in craftsmanship. These features not only define the Beltrami flute, but also set the stage for the development of later Native American flutes. Belo Cozad, a respected Kiowa artist, emerged as a significant figure in the early 1900s. He was known for helping start a flute-making program in the art department at Payne College, an institution dedicated to Native American students. His contributions to the field of indigenous music and arts was not confined to teaching. He was also an exceptional flute maker. The flutes crafted by Cozad were distinctively Kiowa in style. They boasted a unique shape, precise finger hole placement, and ornate carvings. These flutes were more than mere musical instruments. They served as a conduit for the Kiowa people to express their narratives, share their rich culture, and preserve their heritage. Cozad's flutes had an additional intriguing feature. They were designed to warble on the root note. This characteristic was highly sought after during this era because it echoed many of the oral and vocal songs that were integral to the cultural practices. The warble added a distinctive resonance and depth to the music. Through his work at Payne College, he passed on his knowledge and skills to future generations, ensuring the continuation of Kiowa flute-making traditions. As such, Belo Cozad stands as a pivotal figure in the history of the Native American flute, embodying the spirit of preservation, innovation, and cultural expression. Dr. Richard Payne, a highly acclaimed authority in the field of indigenous flute studies, had the rare opportunity to learn from esteemed native musicians such as Kiowa elders Abel Bigbo and Belo Cozad, as well as Richard Fulbull. His dedicated efforts proved instrumental in revitalizing the ancestral knowledge surrounding this captivating instrument, ultimately empowering countless Native American artists and musicians. His deep respect and commitment to the tradition were recognized by those who he worked with. In a significant cultural exchange, Abel Bigbo bestowed upon Doc Payne the name tubat, a term derived from the Kiowa word for wind instrument. This honor reflects the deep connection Payne forged with the communities he studied and his unwavering dedication to preserving and promoting their musical traditions. Driven by an unwavering passion, Payne committed himself to delve deep into intricate nuances of indigenous flutes. His mission was to preserve the art of flute making and its rich historical significance for generations to come. Through his research, teachings, and performances, he played a pivotal role in keeping the vibrant history of the Native American flute alive. Our journey through the history of Native American flutes brings us to the 1980s and the work of Michael Graham Allen, also known as Coyote Oldman, a visionary who profoundly transformed the world of Native American flutes. Initially known for crafting transverse bamboo flutes, Michael found inspiration in the tuning of the Japanese shakuhachi, leading him to introduce what would become the modern native-style flute, a 5-hole minor pentatonic flute. Dr. Richard Payne and Michael met in the early 80s, and they quickly became friends, discussing old flutes and sharing construction processes. It was Doc Payne who encouraged Michael to use a boring method rather than splitting 2 pieces of wood, hollowing, and then gluing back together. This helped streamline the production time for him. However, Michael ultimately incorporated the pentatonic minor scale from his shakuhachi experience in his creations. These early flutes by Michael Graham Allen were 5-hole flutes, echoing the style and natural pentatonic progression of the shakuhachi, thereby fusing Eastern and Native American music traditions in a unique and compelling way. Michael's modern native flutes played a pivotal role in the thriving genre of relaxation music, better known as New Age music. The soothing, harmonious sounds produced with these flutes provide a perfect musical backdrop for meditation, yoga, and other wellness practices. Michael's innovative approach to flute making and his deep understanding of the instrument's cultural significance has not only elevated the status of native flutes, but has also led to their integration into mainstream and alternative music markets across the United States, Europe, and Japan. His flutes have found resonance in the commercial recording eras, contributing to the expansion and diversification of musical landscapes. We've witnessed the evolution of the North American flute over time. We've seen how it's gone from a fragment all the way up to what we have today, which is more of a modern native style flute with 6 holes made of wood, plays a minor pentatonic scale. Over time, though, flute makers have expressed their own creativity in how they make the flutes, but also in the flutes that they make. While this represents a very standard edition of our modern Native American flute, we're going to take a little detour down the road into some other styles of flutes, all with the main focus being they are built a lot the same. And so I want to share with you the smallest flute in my collection, the largest flute in my collection, and some multi-chambered flutes as well. So I think I'll start by putting this into context with what our kind of middle of the road modern native style flute is. From here, I want to share with you the smallest flute in my collection, and typically how this works is the smaller the flute is, the higher the pitch is, and that's definitely represented here. So this is one of the smallest flutes in my collection, over an octave higher than this. This is a small 5-hole cedar flute in the key of A, very high pitch sound. These are referred to as pocket flutes, meaning that they could just fit in your pocket. And these are, we start to see more of these in the marketplace. Michael Graham Allen, who I had mentioned earlier, really was a catalyst for all this creativity, in that he was always experimenting with high flutes, low flutes, different tunings, different configurations. And so from here, I'm going to go to really the opposite end and play one of the largest flutes in my collection, which is, I don't know how many times the size of this small flute. And this is a flute made by Brad Young in Florida. It's made from Spanish cedar. It's a low E flute. So that would be 2 octaves, almost 2.5 octaves below the one you just heard. This one looks a little different in that it has this piece on it. And this is because the flute is too big to play end blown like I have been playing these flutes. And so what we get is, instead of blowing in this end, the flute maker has affixed a side blown piece here, and that really reduces the strain on the wrist and the elbow and the arm, and brings this flute a little closer to the player's body and gives more mobility to them. Here's the low E flute. A very beautiful and meditative sound, for sure. I want to switch gears a little bit and introduce what is known as a drone flute or a double chambered flute. And the reason for this is you'll notice this flute is a little bit wider. Yes, it has beautiful inlay on it. That has nothing to do with the make of this flute, but really makes it beautiful to look at. But this flute has two barrels, and you'll notice that the holes are on only one side of this flute. And this is like two flutes in one. So I have two embouchure holes here on the end, two sound holes, one set of playing holes, but two barrels here. So two flutes made into the same piece of wood. One is melodic, the other one is a drone, and that's why they call these drone flutes. And so the drone side is going to play actually two notes, a root note and an octave note. And so here's how the drone flute sounds. I'll play it singly, and then I'll bring in the drone, and then I'll turn on the reverb. Okay, so that's the drone flute. This is a mid-range flute. Now, going a little different direction, but in that drone flute, we have flutes now in our industry that are called Mayan harmony flutes, or just harmony drone flutes. And you see that this flute also looks very different. It has a lot of characteristics of a single flute and the double flute that we just saw. It has playing holes on the right and the left side. There are also some thumb holes in the back of this instrument as well. So I have basically a longer flute and a shorter flute here. And again, the lower flute plays a lower tone. The shorter flute plays a higher tone. And these are in different keys. The drone flute that I just played for you is in the same key, whereas this one is in the key of D, the lower one, and A. So these are a fifth apart. And in music, those sound really good together. So I'll demonstrate playing them individually and then bringing them together. This is one of my favorite harmony flutes to play, but we're not done yet. I have a few other ones to share with you. Beautiful, beautiful sound from this Mayan harmony drone flute. The next one I want to share with you deviates from a lot of these, but has a lot of the same characteristics. It is a very large flute. It's the largest drone flute in my collection. And again, we have a not much smaller, but a smaller flute on this side and a larger one here. This one's playing a fifth below the smaller flute, even though it is a large flute. Now the tuning is something that is very different on this, whereas the modern native style flute plays a minor pentatonic scale. This flute is tuned to an Aeolian scale. It's one of the modes of music, and it has such a different sound, different intervals, and very romantic and mysterious sounding. So I'll start out playing this just as a single flute, and then I'll bring in this drone side so you can hear the difference as well. Now drone with a little reverb. Beautiful sounds. I love to play and share this flute in yoga and meditation environments. Next up is another, will be the last flute that I show you in this segment. And this is a flute made from Purple Heart by a flute maker, Dustin Selva. And this, you guessed it, is 3 flutes in one. And it's got some interesting things going on, which I'll share with you. Again, flute makers get creative. They are looking at how can I make a better flute, but also how can I add to this? How can I make something a little unique and different? So on my right side, again, there's 2 barrels here and a third here, so 3 different flutes. This is a mid-G flute that has playing holes. The one in the middle here, this one is also a G flute, and it has plugs. So these plugs, you can unplug one of the holes, 2 or 3 of the holes, and you get a different harmony. I'm not going to go too much into that today. And then over here, I actually have a high D flute. And so this is a complete flute on this side. So everything about this is separate. So I can play these individually. So I can play my G flute over here. I can bring in that drone. These 3 are plugged, so I get that constant root note. And then over here, I have a high D flute, so I would play the flute a little bit different. Bringing them all together now, I have one flute that holds a note, and I can play the lower flute here and the higher flute here, 2 different hands, much like the Mayan harmony drone flute that we just saw. So the opportunities are endless. There's so many different styles and hybrid style flutes that we see, all inspired by the Native American flute and the modern Native American flute today in our marketplace, in our industry, in our communities across the world. And so I hope you enjoyed this little segment of show and tell, showing kind of the different advancements of the Native American flute in our community today. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the evolution of the North American flute. As I've shared stories, I've shared songs, and other things surrounding the native flute, I get a lot of questions, so I'd like to take this time and this opportunity to answer some of those for you. Many assume that the Native American flute is very similar to the recorder, and while that's true, I wanted to point out some of the differences in the construction of the instrument and how it relates to the sound that's created. The recorder has a Fipple-style mouthpiece and a whistle mechanism in it. The flute also has that, but the mouthpiece is very different, and it has this area known as the slow air chamber, which creates a little bit more back pressure and is also conductive to the warm sound that's produced with the instrument. So we blow into this end, it goes into the slow air chamber here, and that's really the purpose of this block tied on top, is to direction the airflow into the next chamber of the instrument so it splits the air and makes the sound. Now, the addition of this slow air chamber and the material that it's made from as well, that gives this flute its rich, warm, haunting sound. This leads to another question about the recorder and the native flute, in that, was the Native American flute inspired by the recorder? And the answer is no. The Native American flute has its roots in the indigenous cultures of America and was not influenced by European instruments like the recorder. It's a unique cultural artifact with its own rich history. It's important to note that not all native tribes had a flute as a part of their culture. The flute was predominantly used as a courting ritual, a tool for courtship, where the male would play the song that was in his heart for the one he wished to wed. In today's age, the Native American flute can be found made from many different materials. For example, wood is probably the most common. Second to that would be bamboo or rivercane. We also see flutes being made from PVC and plastic materials. We also see flutes being made from ceramic and clay materials. In addition to that, we also see flutes being made from epoxy and then combinations of materials. And each one of these give a different tonality to the native flute. Earlier flutes being made from rivercane was a resource that was already hollow. And so now we have tools and equipment that we can make flutes out of lots of different types of materials. So when you see flutes out in the marketplace, you see that they're made from a variety of materials. The Native American flute is an instrument of simplicity, and it welcomes everyone regardless of their musical background. Whether you have a music degree or you failed piano lessons as a kid like I did, the flute is a very rewarding and patient instrument. With a few hours of practicing, you could be running up and down the scale, making cool sounds, even creating little melodies for yourself. And the work doesn't have to end there just because you meet a couple of tick boxes and you learned a song and a technique and things like that. Learning the native flute is a lifelong passion for me. I'm constantly refining my sound, learning new things about it, so it becomes a joyous journey rather than an accomplishment or something that you just do. In conclusion, the Native American flute is a journey through time, a testament to our ancestors' creativity and resilience. As we look to the future, let's remember the power of music, the importance of preserving our traditions, and the infinite possibilities of creativity. Thank you so much for joining us today.